Just like the new EVs, used ones are cheaper than ever. Prices of electric cars depreciate so fast that some see used models as a great opportunity to enter the electrified world. But at the same time, there must be a reason why EVs depreciate. So fast, used EVs are the biggest ripoff ever, and we present you 5 reasons why no one wants to buy them. Number 5. Battery concerns. Without any doubt, the battery is the most expensive and therefore most critical part of every electric car. When an EV is new, the battery accounts for at least 30% of its value, sometimes even more. In other words, it is worth thousands of dollars. And just like any other thing, it has its shelf life. That's why every automaker gives a special warranty on this part, which usually goes for around 8 years or more, around 100,000 miles or maybe a bit more. So eventually, one day, the moment for a replacement will come, and when you're buying a used EV, it means it's coming much sooner than when buying a new one. With used cars, the warranty is usually near expiry date, and that wouldn't be a problem if it is a standardized method we would use to measure the actual health of the battery. Unfortunately, that still doesn't exist, even though the quality of the battery cells can be evaluated to some measure. In any case, experience has taught us that batteries degrade much faster than most manufacturers suggest. Let's take Tesla as an example. The Austin-based EV maker, which holds way over 50% of the US EV market, claims that its batteries will preserve at least 70% of its original capacity after 10 years. Well, things are a bit different. In reality, at least if we trust Australian sources, namely Gizmodo.au, recently published a study that included more than 12,000 Tesla Model 3 and Model Y electric cars, 2 of Tesla's most popular models. What the study has revealed is that the range drops to 64% of the original EPA-rated range estimation after just 3 years. 3 years is enough to lose a third of the max range in the case of these 2 Tesla models. So it's pretty easy to conclude why battery health is by far the biggest concern of every potential EV buyer. Number 4. Bare cost and warranty. One of the ways EV makers use to convince potential buyers of the quality of their products is the relatively long warranty they give on their models. It usually exceeds typical warranties of ICE cars. And that's the type of peace of mind that we all want. Mostly these come with an 8 or 10-year battery warranty, while other parts are covered for a long time as well. But eventually the warranty will expire. But it's hard to tell what's going to happen next from the perspective of a used EV buyer. That's one of the most problematic issues, because most owners sell their cars when they get close to the end of the warranty. This means that soon after they buy a used EV, new owners will enter unexplored areas of uncertainty. This primarily refers to extremely high repair costs, because EVs are not cheap to maintain, as some like to say. Yes, they feature fewer moving parts than ICE cars, which means fewer potential breakdowns. But the latest survey by Consumer Reports showed that EVs are nowhere near as reliable as some thought. No, they cause 80% more problems than gas-powered cars, and things become even more problematic once you realize the repair costs are much higher. EVs lack regular maintenance services like oil changes. But what's also lacking our car mechanics specialized in EVs. A trained professional is much harder. That only adds up even more in terms of the overall repair costs. Then there's the way EVs are constructed, which doesn't allow reparation of most of the parts. Instead, you have to buy and install a new one, which is several times more expensive. The best examples are collisions, or even a small one can damage the battery housing and cost you thousands of dollars to repair. Also, let's not neglect the fact that EVs rely heavily on high-tech systems that often require software updates to work properly. No one knows what will happen in 5 or 10 years. Will manufacturers still be releasing updates, or will owners have to rely on third parties? It's still unclear, but one way or another, this will probably bring in extra costs. Number 3. Outdated tech. Electric cars are still a pretty fresh thing. And just like with every other new technology, things are evolving pretty fast with EVs. Things are changing rapidly, so we're already seeing the phenomenon of so-called buyer's remorse, or a certain EV model gets outdated in just a few years. Battery technology is certainly a thing that affects a used EV appeal. The most newer EV feature more advanced batteries with higher energy density and battery range. All improved battery chemistries and management systems make newer units more durable and increase longevity. Furthermore, there's the matter of charging speed, with newer models significantly cutting charging periods compared to older models. Let's assume that someone is considering buying a 5-year-old EV. One of the options would be a 2019 Chevy Bolt, which features a 50 kilowatt charging speed and can add around 90 miles at about 30 minutes. If you use a DC unit back in the day, that was decent charging speed, but today you have models like the Hyundai Ioniq 6 with an impressive 350 kilowatt fast charging and the ability to add 90 miles of range in no more than 7 minutes. With such a rapid technological advance in mind, we can only imagine what models like the Bolt will look like in another 5 years and how it will stand against the latest models on the market. Why would anyone buy an outdated, soon-to-be archaic EV that could soon become worth just a fraction of the potential battery replacement costs? Number 2. Different social groups and their preferences. When we consider the potential of the US EV market, we should ask ourselves who buys electric cars. The rapid growth of the EV market happened thanks to early adopters, while the households that don't care much about the price, riding costs, and other things associated with EVs. Of course, those types of consumers don't buy used cars, which limits the US EV market significantly, because those who would potentially buy a used EV are middle and working class grade, lower income households. For them, EVs have never been a particularly appealing proposal due to numerous drawbacks related to EV ownership, starting from charging range anxiety, high repair costs, etc. These customers haven't embraced EV technology yet, and judging by the current trends, they won't anytime soon. Simply, these households usually own just one vehicle and rather choose a cheaper option like gas-powered cars with proven technology and guaranteed peace of mind. Their choices are driven by rational reasons. They don't care much about the latest technology, zero emissions, or things like that. They choose a more payable solution. Number 1. Typical EV concerns. Although older, cheaper, and usually outdated used EVs bring the same kind of concerns as new ones, and that's once again the main deal breaker for many potential buyers, because electric cars prove to be more problematic and more complicated to own than ICE cars in practice. For example, there's range anxiety, which is probably even more accentuated with older generation EVs due to battery degradation and older technology in general. The US DVS autonomy is certainly one of the limiting factors, especially for those customers who plan frequent longer distance journeys. Which brings us to another common concern: charging infrastructure. Namely, no matter if you're buying a new or used EV, charging anxiety is the same due to the infrastructure that's not developed enough. This is certainly one of the main reasons why many hesitate to buy an electric car. The availability of charging stations is still quite limited, especially in rural areas. And it's also worth to mention that charging time may require a complete change of lifestyle. As we already talked about, battery longevity and degradation concerns are even bigger. In the case of used cars, wild, costly replacement seems much more likely to occur, which deters potential buyers from used DVS even more. Buying a second-hand vehicle means that there's still some value left in that car, and that customers would still be able to get some money if they decide to sell it in the next few years with EVs. That seems a bit trickier considering the fast depreciation rate, which may speed up even more considering the further technological advances. Finding qualified technicians, along with not so low running costs, is another thing that most potential buyers take into account, along with higher insurance costs and similar concerns. Then let's not forget that at the time these used EVs were new, the offer was very limited. Buyers of used EVs are limited to just a couple of models, which is yet another deterring factor these days. Another problem with used EVs as their visual appeal, because back in the day, carmakers were still designing EVs to accentuate their futuristic nature. Today, EVs look more conventional and resemble ICE cars more than ever, which is something most customers prefer. Altogether, used EVs bring too many question marks and not too many answers, so it doesn't surprise that most customers rather choose to stay away from them. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.